In 2018, the United States Consumer Product Safety Commission announced a recall involving more than 104,000 multi-cookers after reports that certain units could be opened while pressurized, posing a burn hazard. The brand was Instant Brands, the company behind the Instant Pot. According to the CPSC recall notice published August 30, 2018, approximately 107 reports of overheating and melting were linked to specific models. That was not a fringe manufacturer. That was the category leader. Now understand what that means? If the most recognized pressure cooker brand in North America can ship a defect at scale, what do you think is happening with the no-name versions flooding online marketplaces? Pressure cookers are not blenders. They are not toasters. They operate by trapping steam in a sealed environment, increasing internal pressure above atmospheric levels to raise the boiling point of water. At 15 pounds per square inch above atmospheric pressure, water boils around 250 degrees Fahrenheit instead of 212. That is physics documented by the National Institute of Standards and Technology. That is why pressure cookers reduce cooking time. It is also why failure is not cosmetic. Failure is violent. According to peer-reviewed injury data published in the journal Burns in 2017, pressure cooker-related burns frequently involve the face, chest, and upper extremities due to explosive steam release when safety mechanisms fail or are bypassed. When a lid opens under pressure, the contents do not spill, they erupt. So when we talk about a blacklist, this is not about aesthetics. This is about engineering tolerances measured in millimeters. Let us start with the reality most buyers do not know. The term Instant Pot is not a generic category. It is a trademark owned by Instant Brands, founded in 2009 in Canada. By 2017, according to data reported by the NPD Group, Instant Pot multi-cookers became the top-selling small kitchen appliance on Amazon during Prime Day. That commercial success triggered a flood of competitors. Some are legitimate appliance companies with long manufacturing histories. Others are private label imports produced by contract factories and sold under rotating brand names. The first category on a chef's blacklist is not a specific logo. It is a pattern. Brands with no traceable manufacturer address, no UL certification, and no verifiable recall history. Underwriters Laboratories, now known simply as UL Solutions, tests electrical appliances for safety compliance in North America. A UL listing mark indicates the device has been evaluated for electrical fire risk and compliance with specific standards, such as UL 1026 for household cooking appliances. If a pressure cooker is not UL listed, it has not been independently evaluated for electrical safety under that system. In 2021, the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission issued warnings about counterfeit certification marks appearing on imported electronics. If a multi-cooker claims certification but the number cannot be verified in UL's public database, that is not a technicality. That is a red flag. Now let us name the first brand category chefs quietly avoid: off-market Amazon-exclusive labels that appear and disappear within 24 months. In 2023, an investigative report by The Markup found that thousands of products sold on Amazon were tied to shell companies that dissolved and reappeared under new names after accumulating poor reviews or safety complaints. That is not speculation. That is documented marketplace churn. If your pressure cooker brand did not exist 3 years ago and has no physical headquarters listed beyond a fulfillment warehouse, you are the beta tester. Second on the blacklist are brands that have documented lid-locking failures. In 2020, the CPSC announced a recall of certain Crock-Pot Express models after 119 reports of lid detachment during use, including 99 burn injuries. The manufacturer was Sunbeam Products, a division of Newell Brands, and the recall involved approximately 914,430 units sold in the United States. That recall was public, traceable, and corrective. The problem was that users could open the lid before all pressure was released. The brand behind Crock-Pot is not obscure. It is Sunbeam Products, a major consumer goods conglomerate, and yet nearly 1 million units were recalled. So if a multinational corporation with regulatory compliance departments can miss a lid interlock flaw, what confidence should you have in a budget multi-cooker selling for $49 with no engineering transparency? The third category on the blacklist involves thin-gauge stainless steel inner pots. Professional chefs pay attention to thermal mass. The thicker the base of a cooking vessel, the more evenly it distributes heat. Consumer Reports testing in 2022 evaluated multi-cookers across several brands and noted performance variation in browning and temperature consistency. Units with heavier inner pots demonstrated more stable sauté temperatures. When manufacturers cut costs, they often reduce material thickness. That saves pennies per unit at scale, but it increases hot spotting, scorching, and sensor misreads. In a pressure cooker, inconsistent heating can trigger repeated pressure cycling, stressing seals and valves. A chef will not tolerate that because predictability is control. Fourth on the blacklist are brands with documented gasket degradation issues. Silicone sealing rings must maintain elasticity under repeated exposure to temperatures above 240 degrees Fahrenheit. A 2019 materials study published in Polymer Degradation and Stability examined how repeated thermal cycling affects silicone elastomers. Over time, elasticity decreases, increasing leakage risk. When replacement gaskets are proprietary and unavailable, the entire appliance becomes disposable. Some off-brand multi-cookers do not provide replacement parts through any official channel. If your sealing ring fails and the company's website is gone, your only option is third-party aftermarket parts with no certification trail. That is not maintenance. That is planned obsolescence. Fifth on the blacklist are brands with incomplete pressure release mechanisms. Modern electric pressure cookers typically include at least 3 safety redundancies: a primary steam release valve, a float valve indicator, and a lid lock interlock system. According to engineering documentation from established manufacturers, these redundancies are layered intentionally. In 2018, the recall involving Instant Brands cited a specific manufacturing defect where the appliance could overheat and melt the underside. The company publicly identified affected models and offered replacements. That transparency matters. But some low-cost brands have no published engineering diagrams, no safety white papers, and no public recall archive. If something fails, there is no corrective infrastructure. Sixth on the blacklist are brands that inflate capacity claims. Pressure cookers are rated by total volume, but maximum fill lines typically limit usable capacity to 2/3 for most foods and 1/2 for beans, grains, and foaming foods. The USDA Complete Guide to Home Canning specifies similar fill ratios for safe pressure processing. Some budget brands advertise 8-quart capacity while burying fill restrictions in fine print. In practical terms, an 8-quart unit may safely handle far less. A chef evaluates usable volume, not box claims. Seventh on the blacklist are brands with unresolved multi-year recall litigation. In 2022, multiple lawsuits were filed in U.S. federal courts alleging severe burn injuries from pressure cookers that allegedly opened while pressurized. Public court records show ongoing litigation involving several brands, including cases filed against manufacturers of electric pressure cookers sold under various retail labels. Litigation alone does not prove defects, but patterns matter. When dozens of similar injury claims appear across jurisdictions, that is not anecdotal. That is a data signal. Now here is the uncomfortable truth. Many of the brands consumers assume are independent are owned by parent corporations. For example, Crock-Pot is owned by Newell Brands. Instant Pot is owned by Instant Brands, which filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection in June 2023. According to court filings in the U.S. Bankruptcy Court for the Southern District of Texas, the filing cited liquidity pressures despite strong brand recognition. When a company restructures under bankruptcy protection, supply chains shift, vendor contracts change, cost pressures intensify. That does not automatically mean quality declines. but it increases the risk of cost-cutting measures. Now let us step back. In 1953, the first widely adopted stovetop pressure cookers entered American kitchens after the National Pressure Cooker Company rebranded itself as Presto. Early models were mechanical and relied entirely on weighted regulators. Modern electric versions integrate circuit boards, thermal sensors, and microprocessors. The more electronics you introduce into a high-pressure environment, the more failure points you create. That is why certification, recall transparency, and parts availability are not optional. A chef's blacklist is not emotional. It is actuarial. If a brand has no UL listing, no traceable headquarters, no documented engineering safety layers, no replacement parts ecosystem, and no recall transparency, it does not enter a professional kitchen. Not because it is cheap, but because pressure is unforgiving. According to the National Fire Protection Association, cooking equipment remains the leading cause of home fires, accounting for 44% of reported home fires in 2021. While pressure cookers represent a fraction of those cases, the stakes are measurable. Steam at 250 degrees does not negotiate. Now here is what most consumers misunderstand. Failure does not always happen immediately. A multi-cooker may function flawlessly for 18 months before a microfracture in a valve housing, a degraded gasket, or a warped lid seal introduces instability. By that point, your warranty window may be closed. That is why chefs look for brands that have maintained consistent model lines for multiple years with documented parts support, stability signals, accountability. If a company changes model numbers every 12 months and erases old documentation from its website, that is not innovation. That is reset. The blacklist is not 7 random names. It is 7 patterns. No certification. Documented lid failures, thin thermal mass, unavailable gaskets, incomplete safety redundancies, inflated capacity marketing, unresolved injury litigation. If a brand checks 3 of those boxes, it does not belong in your kitchen. Pressure cooking is one of the most efficient cooking methods ever engineered. It reduces cooking time, preserves nutrients by minimizing water exposure, and improves collagen breakdown in meats. Studies published in the Journal of Food Science have shown pressure cooking can retain higher levels of certain heat-sensitive nutrients compared to prolonged boiling. The method is not the problem. The metallurgy, gasket chemistry, and quality control is. A pressure cooker is a sealed system. Every seal is a promise. Every valve is a contract. And when that contract fails, it fails instantly. Manufacturers with decades-long histories publish manuals, replacement parts, and recall notices in accessible archives. Fly-by-night brands publish glossy product photos and disappear when liability appears. So before you click Add to Cart on a discounted multi-cooker with a name you have never heard of, search the CPSC recall database. Verify UL certification numbers. Confirm the manufacturer's physical address. Check whether replacement gaskets are sold directly by the company. If that infrastructure does not exist, you are not buying a bargain. You are assuming engineering risk. The chef's blacklist is not about brand loyalty. It is about physics, documentation, and traceability. And the difference between a safe multi-cooker and a dangerous one is rarely visible from the outside. It is hidden in the thickness of steel, the resilience of silicone, and the honesty of a recall notice. Choose accordingly. Because when steam escapes at 15 pounds per square inch above atmospheric pressure, the brand name on the lid will not matter. Only the engineering will.